Welcome everybody. There's been a bit of a delay because we've been waiting and people coming on. I think we've got most people on now. There may be another few people will join us as the webinar goes on this evening. They've maybe been working and running in late. So I think it's important that for the guys that have got here in time that we start the presentation. So for those that don't know me out there, I'm Joyce Hearn. I'm the Deputy Sports Director at British Judo. And tonight we want to talk to you about the recovery plan and a safe return to play. This is the third in a series of webinars that we have done, and it's a follow-up from last lockdown. So there may be some content that we're just going over again. You may be already familiar with it and have already looked at the documentation. Even today, there's been changes a couple of times to what's happening, so we've had to adapt and change the presentation and some of our resources already today. And that'll probably be ongoing because COVID has been a bit up and down at the moment. So I'd also like to welcome Keith Merrick. He's a Regional Support Officer from the Midlands region, and also joining us. We didn't know Dermot was joining us, so we've not got his name up here tonight, but he's joining us tonight as well, and he's the Regional Support Officer for the northern area. Unfortunately, Nick's not able to make it tonight due to other commitments, and Colin McIver's not been able to make it either. So Keith is going to take on some of the information that Colin was going to put across tonight around the 10-point plan and the grants. Both Keith and Dermot will be looking after the question and answers. So you can't actually speak tonight, but there is a Q&A box where you can field some questions. We will keep most of them to the end. However, intermittently during the webinar, we'll ask if there's anything that's pertinent and should be answered there and then. And there'll also be some polls, but I'll take you through how they will work. And that's basically just to get an idea of how people are feeling out there in terms of coming back and what support they may be looking for. And it follows on from the webinars we did last year before the last lockdown ended. So I'd just like to share a little quote with you before we get into to everything else around recovery and a safe return to judo. I've just taken a wee second to read it, internalise it, see what it means to you. So individually, we are one drop, but together we are an ocean. And for me, and maybe some of you out there, this quote really encapsulates what's happening at the moment and what we're looking to do as British Judo, what you're looking to do as clubs, and almost certainly what our stakeholders are looking at. And that's about people connecting and collaborating, pulling together to make sport and activity great and to ensure that it continues despite the lockdown and post-lockdown, whenever that is, in terms of COVID-19 in the long term. So it's about coming together, and for the judo guys out there, and certainly us this evening, it's about us all pulling together really to get judo up and running again over the next year and beyond that. So what we do in the coming months is really important. Now, the webinar objective is to provide information that will help clubs achieve a safe return to play and an effective recovery. So we're going to start with a little question, and it's basically, it's to see what your main concerns about returning to judo might be, and that will help inform us how we can help you going forward. So I'm just going to start the poll. Just launching it. So have a read and just take a few seconds to read it and then answer. there's still a few of you to provide a response. Give you another few seconds and then I'll end the poll. Not being able to. I'm just going to end the poll now. And I'll share the results with you. And if you consider the results, we've done a coaching survey recently, and it probably, it doesn't quite mirror, but it's quite similar in terms of the concerns out there. They're about returning safely. It's about how you're going to manage the safety requirements, and reduced members has been a big one. And I hope by the end of the presentation or the webinar tonight, we'll have helped alleviate some of those fears. And obviously for some people, financial sustainability will be an issue, especially if members are reduced and the cost of your venue goes up, or reduced mat numbers, not enough finance coming in to help you pay the fee, the hall hires and so on and so forth. And it's good to see that a few of you have no concerns. I'm just going to stop sharing this now, and we can move on to the. I'm going to hand over to Keith now, who's going to take you over the 10-point plan.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It's great to see so many people from the South joining us tonight. We really do appreciate that. And we hope to be seeing you in the flesh in 2021 at some events to come up. So what's British Judo's 10-point plan? I'm just going to take you through it. So number one, what we really want to do is try to remove any real niggly barriers, or in some cases remove some cost and such like. And one of the first things we're going to be doing is extending the club affiliation. As some of you will probably be aware, club affiliation and individual memberships were extended by 4 months because of lockdown periods in 2020. So the club affiliation at the moment expires on the 30th of April. And what British Judo are going to do is give you an extra 11 months to take you up to the 31st of March 2022. And then that will start the new anniversary of club affiliation. You'll probably be aware that it used to be 1st of January, but from 2022, it will be 1st of April for club affiliation. In addition to that, we're going to give a 1-year extension to coaches, technical officials and referees, all to complete their technical revalidation. So as it takes the pressure off a little bit, because you've been robbed the opportunity for, well, more than a year to participate in those type of events. And we just want to give you that opportunity. And we're not going to be, when you come, you know, with the case of the referees, the technical officials and the coaches, when it becomes time for your revalidation, we're not going to be absolutely pedantic on every small item. There will be some give and take. The other thing is we want to help you to pull in some new members. Of course, new members are going to be really, really key to Judo going forward. For sure, because of the virus, we will have lost some of our membership. We would hope to get the majority back, but some will have been lost. That's inevitable in any sport. And what we'd want to do to help you to get new membership in is offer a 90-day free introductory membership for new members. So, and by new members, we really do mean new. We mean new to British Judo. So it's not somebody who's lapsed or archived. It is a new member. But 90 days is a much better offer than it used to be, which was 4 sessions or a month, as in that type of thing. Communication. We want to improve communication with you, with the members, the parents, using data that we had from pre-lockdown in 2020. we feel that the data that we have from the 19th of March 2020 is more realistic than we have today. We expected that the membership would go down. Of course it would, because people are not able to do their sport as they always have done. So memberships have lapsed or been archived. But we've got a data export from the dojo, which shows us all the relevant parameters of every member at 19th of March. So we have what it takes to get in touch with every member that we had before the virus struck its deed. And with club engagement, we intend to deliver a nationwide series of engagement webinars to help the clubs. And this will be dealt with by the regional support officers and maybe some on a national basis, but many on a more local basis and regional basis to help the clubs to get over different hurdles. And you'll come across various problems, difficulties in contacting people, and we'll be there to help you. So what we'll be doing in these delivery webinars is advising you on ways to go. And we can do this via offering you more resources. And these resources will be mainly from a digital perspective, where we can offer you advertising materials, which can help you with whatever social media you're using. Facebook is obviously a popular one, but the digital resource, and we will offer some hard copy, but it'll be mainly digital that we'd hope that you'll be using to make contact with your members and ex-members. The actual member engagement, so we'll support clubs making contact by, again, using the data that we had from the 19th of March. We'll be able to share this with you. Of course, there'll be GDPR regulations. We'll need to be aware of that. But as long as we follow those guidelines, we don't see any major issues with giving you the information to contact your ex-members who are now in lapsed or archived. We could move on a slide, please, Joyce. Club support. Many of you will be aware of the club support that we've been making over the last few months with regard to the club grants. So we'll talk a little bit more about the results of the club grants later in the presentation. But right now, we've had around 220 clubs that have benefited from the club grants. So that's clubs that have managed to get up to £500 based on the needs of their club. And of course, we had to make sure that we satisfied the inequalities fund of Sport England, because Sport England made a £150,000 contribution to that fund. So we're not only talking about that club grants, because that's sort of history now, but funding going forward. The regional support officers, such as myself, Dermot and Nick Shepherd, can help you and guide you to going for future grants, depending on what particular aspect that you might need. I've just lost the page. Okay, it's back. So item 7, so the digital communications. British Judo are going really into the digital arena these days, and we're developing a platform to help us communicate with you, and the delivery of webinars and blended learning for education and training. So what we mean here, blended learning would be the type of learning where we have some face-to-face activity, but we also have some technology. So pretty much like tonight, Zoom, we could, for example, on a level 1 coaching course, deliver a portion of that course remotely via Zoom. This will not only be more cost effective because people won't have to travel to a set venue for as many days as they have done before, but it'll be a little bit quicker. And we'll be stretching that to other areas. Right now, we are taking the blended learning approach for the referees and the technical officials also. We're going to be offering the theoretical elements and the theory examinations online. We've got quite a number of volunteers that are helping us to tutor these courses, and those courses for the actual awards will be starting in July. Gradings, we want to encourage you to conduct more gradings, and the only way really to do that is have some sort of incentive. We've had for some time now a situation where the clubs can conduct the grading and they will get a money rebate, but that has ended up being just a little bit administrative heavy. So what we've decided to do is offer the gradings where the club takes their portion of the fee at source and only submits the actual amount of money to British Judo that British Judo is going to keep. So if a grading was £14, for example, and £2 goes to the club, you just send the £12 to British Judo and keep the £2 for the club. We would hope that that would be a more satisfactory way of doing it and a little bit smarter. The festivals and competition, for sure, we want low-level competitions to start up as quickly as the constraints will allow us to do so. And that is part of the reasoning for training the referees and technical officials remotely, so as we are geared up and ready as quickly as possible with as many new officials to staff these events. We probably see that the events will be level 1 and level 2 to get us moving, whereas level 4 will come some while later. We wouldn't want to be jumping right in at level 4 level. So training more people, getting them theoretically qualified, and then the name of the game is to mentor these people to bring them up to the level once competition is back and live. And finally, going digital again. Digital's been mentioned again, but we're going to introduce digital membership cards. So no longer will you have to be worried about remembering your membership or license book, as some of us like to call them. Your digital membership card can be accessed on your phone or any internet device, really. So this means that you will always have that facility, and you usually people more regularly can remember the phone than anything else. So you should have all that information with you at any time. Over to the next slide, please. So to summarize on what we're talking about with the coaches, referees and technical officials, there will be a 1-year extension to your revalidation date. This will enable you to complete any technical modules or events that you need to do. To help those coaches who may have had a first aid expiry in either 2020 or 2021, so you are currently without a first aid, but you did have one at some point in 2020 or 2021, you're going to be offered a 3-month extension to give you a chance just to get that done. And of course, this can be done online in this COVID period to get you back moving again. Should anybody want to do that, just contact your local support officer who will offer you the link to use that. However, if you're a coach, you must have a DBS and Safeguarding and Protecting Children certificate. These are a must-have, as pretty much is the license, is the membership as well. These are extremely important, and we must we must adhere to that. We can't, unfortunately, can't offer any concessions on those two or the membership. All those three need to be in place. But the continuous professional development, that can be done over the 1 year extension. And for memberships, because of the data that we have, as I said earlier, we can offer you that data so as you can contact the members if they've lapsed. You will know people in your clubs that for sure they're not going to leave judo. It's just that they didn't renew their membership because there was no activity. But just a little call and reminder that the club's back open again for some sort of level of judo. And just to make sure that you've got all the contact information you need, such as the email, the telephone number, whatever it takes, that will help you along. For the membership as well, British Judo currently in the process of deciding what we can do about people at all different stages of membership. So from current is totally valid, lapsed, only being invalid for a short period, or archived for a longer period. There is some discussions on what we can and can't do, and there'll be a more formal offer a bit later on. Back to you, Joyce. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much for that, Keith. So that's us spoken a bit about the plan for the next year and how we're going to help clubs get back up and going again. I'm just going to talk a bit about kind of where we are at the moment and over the next few months in terms of recovery roadmap. For some reason, it was just taking a wee while for the document to come up there. Sorry about that. So in terms of the roadmap, there's 5 stages to this, 5 steps. Step 1 and step 1B. I've got about 5, apologies, I've got about 5 documents flashing up at the moment. Okay, that should start to settle now, I think. Apologies for the flashing screen. Settled down now. So there's 5 steps in the process. Step 5 is a British Judo step in the process. The other steps are sort of governed through UK government. We're at step 1B at the moment, which is the 29th, started on the 29th of March, and that allows us to do some outdoor activity, whether you're under 18s or over 18s. Where disability participants are concerned, they can train indoors and outdoors with no restrictions. The rest of us also have some sort of restriction. In terms of travel, you can travel at the moment for sport and activity. However, the government asked that we minimise that, and that travel should be for general and genuine activity or sport. So next week on the 12th of April, there have even been some changes to this today. We thought we were getting indoor contact for over 18s, but we're not, unfortunately. However, under 18s, organised indoor sport will allow full contact indoors. Over 18s can participate indoors, but in a 1-to-1, and can participate outdoors in a 1-to-15, but that is non-contact. However, in terms of when we say non-contact, they can use bands, so you can have a coach and a player and they're using bands. However, the coach and the player they're not allowed to come into contact, whether it's clothing or skin. They can only have a hold of the bands. In boxing, it would be pads. So it's technically, they call it contact, but it's actually non-contact, which is a bit confusing, I know. Again, disability is permitted indoors and outdoors at the moment, and they still come next week and they still ask you to minimise the travel, but you can travel for sport. when it comes to step 3, we won't get any details till at least the 10th of May. And that's been quite common along this roadmap the last couple of months. The government don't give us any information till at least a week before we're ready to go again, which is a bit inconvenient, but it is the way we are at the moment. COVID's a bit unpredictable, and they don't want people jumping the gun and putting information out too soon, hence the hold up in getting information out to you guys sometimes. We're hoping by the 21st of June that full contact judo will be allowed again. There'll be no legal limits or restrictions, certainly on the mat, and no restrictions on life events. However, we need to wait and see what happens there. That could change depending what happens with COVID. And I've already said step 5 is a British judo step. And that's because we want to slow down people going back to coaching courses, technical official courses and competitions, and that's face-to-face courses and competitions. We want to slow that down. We may be able to get some intra-club stuff in June, at the end of June. However, that we ask people to limit that, because that will depend on how fit your athletes are coming back, because we want to bring them back slowly and not rush it too much. So that's where we are with that. Apologise, I'm having some technical issues here. So in terms of step 1B and what we can do at the moment, for under 18s, just to go over it again, full contact is permitted outdoors at the moment. There's no restrictions on travel. We ask, and it's a British judo thing, 15:1 coach to athlete ratio. No spectators are allowed at the moment. During breaks and certainly before and after sessions, the social distancing rule must be adhered to, that 2-meter rule between people. Discourage parents, from staying around as well. Ask them to make sure that they don't congregate either in more than 6 people at a time. And certainly those 6 people should be socially distancing. The hygiene rules still apply outside. So make sure if you need to clean equipment or hand wash or use hand gel, that's available. Over 18s can take place outdoors. Again, that's just adhering to the social distance rule of up to 6 people who are separate, and they are training social bubbles. Apart from that, there is no contact unless it is pads or bands. If there's anything used, it must be cleaned in between sessions. Same social distancing, hygiene and travel rules apply there as well. So that's where we are with that. In terms of step 2B, this has changed a couple of times today because we thought we were getting indoor training for over 18s, but we're not. So for under 18s, indoor, 15 people indoors can practice together. 15:1 coach to athlete ratio. So it's basically the same as what outdoors was, but it's indoors. Social distancing rules need to be adhered to, hygiene rules need to be adhered to, and still no spectators. For over 18s, it's slightly different. They can train indoors. This will be non-contact, but when we say non-contact, it's contact in the sense that you can use bands and pads and things like that as long as there's no contact, same as there was before outside. The ratio for organised outdoor contact will be 15:1 instead of pools of 6 or bubbles of 6. It will be 15:1 outdoors. Again, try to stick to those sort of groups if you're a coach working with those groups. And the same social distancing and hygiene rules apply there as well. So that's where we are with 1B and step 1B and step 2. I'll go back to step 1B and 2 for disability. So disability judoka can participate outdoors and indoors. There is full contact is permitted. There is no restrictions on them, but we do ask you to adhere to the social distancing rules before, during, and after sessions. If a person with a disability needs a helper or a parent along, then that is feasible, and they're allowed to do that, and they're allowed to get involved in the session. But again, keep that to what's necessary, because you don't want to expose people to unnecessary health risks. And like it was before and just after the last lockdown, ensure that your environment is safe, that mats are cleaned, that everything's effectively cleaned before, during, after sessions, whether that's the mats, equipment, or people's personal belongings. In terms of education, there's a few people been asked what the situation is with education, so we thought we would talk a little bit about that tonight. So in terms of indoor facilities, these can be used by schools and for education and by education and training providers, such as colleges and universities. And that rule, from our sport perspective, would cover the DICE programme that the England Talent Development Team look after. So for organised sport or individual fitness activities, and it's related to their curriculum, they can also practice indoors. And again, that's about, for us, probably the DICE programme. Again, in terms of organised indoor sport, it is permitted where it's part of formal education and can take place indoors if necessary. But again, even in phase 2, if you can do something outdoors, like fitness activity that doesn't involve throwing somebody about, you can still take that outdoors. That would be the best option if you can. However, you can do the activity indoors. Indoor sport for under 18s, that can also take place at school as part of its education provision or as part of a wraparound care. So if you're a private provider of sport, judo for instance, then you can get involved in these initiatives and you can practice as a coach. This next section, you've probably went through this if you came to the webinars last year, and this is just about ensuring that the guidelines are available for your club members before they come back. Ensure that all areas that you set up allow for social distancing, whether that's outside or inside. Ensure that the areas are, sufficiently signed and sufficiently marked. It may just be using yellow masking tape or something just to ensure that people keep their distance from each other. It might be signs letting them know where the hand gel is or the washing facilities for their hands. We ask you to inform members and parents what a return will look like. And of course, probably one of the most important things when people do return, ensure that this is a slow phase return with low volume and intensity. We know that some people have been training out there and they may be able to come back a wee bit quicker with a little bit higher volume or higher intensity. The majority, I would think, will be coming back, not unfit, but not with the level of fitness you would need for real hard judo. And there may be players that are part of the England Talent Development Team in your club or the Reds programme. They may come along to the club with other members and they may be ready to go at a higher intensity. So just be aware of the group that you're with, and you're all experienced out there. So I'm sure that I'm talking to the converted, but I think it's always worth emphasising. In terms of the guidelines, they are on British Judo's website and you can look at that at your leisure. They're on the dojo. and they have loads of guidance from risk assessments to the information you may want to share with your members before they come along. In terms of preparation of administration, the club declaration form must be signed by all clubs before they come back to Judo. We've put that online now, and we ask if you change from indoors to outdoors. So you may submit a club declaration form saying that you're just doing indoor Judo. If you decide then to do outdoor Judo, you must come back on and resubmit your club declaration form with some additional information that we'll be asking there as well. And the additional information will just be trying to assess what your needs are out there in the Judo world itself. Now, so I'll see if that comes up. My internet's a little bit slow tonight for some reason. I apologise for that. So the club declaration form is on our COVID hub, and I'll send these links to you later on tonight. So it's simply, you go in, you complete the information on the form around your club, your address, in what capacity you're returning at this time. So you would just select, you can select more than one option here, but you need to resubmit if you're changing what you do. And then under that, it's just asking some information about did your club or business offer an online provision throughout the recent lockdown? Did your club or business players engage with British Judo online sessions? So there's information that we want to collate there as well. So we'd appreciate that if you complete that when you return to Judo. We have the athlete indemnity form that's on our COVID website as well. And that's a basic form that asks you information, asks your athlete or your participant to provide information before they come along. So you would email that out to the players. They would send it back before the session, hopefully saying that they've not been in contact with anybody with COVID, they don't have any of the symptoms, and there's nothing else that would put them at risk at having COVID. So that would just be a check to make sure that they're fit to come along to the session. We also have another option, which is a digital symptom checker, and I'll send you this documentation as well, and you can have a look at this. And it's an offer from Proactive, who are a company that work with our insurers. Now, there is a cost to this. We don't charge MD, we don't get any money from this. We don't get any money at all from this. It's just the company themselves. And all the information is here on how to enroll, how you would, what it would look like when your participants get the email from you, what they would fill in and what they would send back to you in order to ensure that they were ready to come back to Judo. So you could use this instead of the athlete indemnity form. Some information here around the cost is £3 plus VAT for a single checker license, and that's better for a smaller club that doesn't have too many sessions. If you're a bigger club, you might want to do the multi-checker license, which is £20 plus VAT. Again, that's for a 12-month period. But it's a nice way to encapsulate that information in one place. It saves you having to deal with files all over the place. They can simply use it on the phone or on the laptop, and you as a club will get there'll be a dashboard that you can that you will have that will show you whether people are fit to come back or not, and it will allow you to contact them. But I'd suggest you have a read at that and see if that's something that you as a club would want to use and want to take the opportunity. I think I've already sent these links already, actually. Again, we ask that you maintain an up-to-date register. If you're using a digital symptom checker, that should act as your register for you. So you've already got that information. We ask that you have a valid BJA membership before you come along. However, we know some people will be coming back and they'll have lapsed. I would give them a few weeks to get that up and running again, and we would honour that certainly for a couple of weeks if that is the case. But still, I would encourage them to make sure that the licenses are in date, or their memberships are in date. ensure that you again have a valid BJA coach award with the exemptions and with the things that were put in place to give you a bit of time, like a first aid, to give you a bit of time to get back up and running again. So that's where we are with the administration. Like the last time when people are travelling back and forward to Judo, we encourage them to use their own car, to car share as little as possible, although we know in some instances this may, they may have to. If they do have to, then they need to make sure that they're separated, clearly separated in the car. But would encourage people not to car share, if they're coming by public transport, make sure that they're wearing face masks and they're sanitising their hands, all the usual health and hygiene things that are connected with COVID. Make sure that they abide by those rules. In terms of personal items, anything that they're wearing or they're bringing into the dojo should have been cleaned prior to coming into the dojo. It might be that they've got their kit on, they've got a tracksuit on top, ensure that tracksuit's taken off and put in a bag. If they're a kid coming with their parent, they may even wear, and would encourage them to wear their kit straight to the club itself. But we know if you're travelling, you may have clothing on over your judogi. In terms of water bottles and other equipment, make sure they're cleaned before coming along, and certainly after the session. Equipment between usage, if it's used during the session. And water bottles, discourage people, and we should be doing that anyway, and I know we do that, discourage people from sharing water bottles. Some people still, in the odd time, will share a bottle, but we just make sure that, from our perspective, that doesn't happen, and we're quite clear on that. In terms of hygiene, make sure, we've already said this, that the judogi is clean. We know that some manufacturers don't recommend a 60 degrees wash. That would be the best possible option. However, follow the manufacturer's instructions, because we don't want any shrunk kits out there. Make sure there's hand washing facilities, and these hand washing facilities are used, and that hand gels are used as well on and off the mat when they're coming into the building. Make sure that all those hand washing options are available and utilised before, during and after sessions. Face coverings are not needed and not recommended on the mat. However, should anybody be off the mat or when they're coming to and from judo, certainly where they have to, make sure that people wear any face coverings that are needed at that point in that situation. Encourage people to bring their own belongings, their own tissues, first aid kit if they can. Some clubs will have enough first aid equipment and be able to supply that. However, I think it's still good practice to encourage people to bring their own, but we do know that there's people out there can't afford that. So you've got to be sensible and realistic in what you can do there. In terms of the environment, again, make sure the signage is all available, and there's signage available on the British Judo's COVID-19 website inside the Safe Return to Judo document. You can just click those links and print the signage off. You can also buy your own if you want to. Some clubs out there have done a good job of getting their own signage done and getting it marked up with their own branding, but certainly British Judo have it there if you want to print it off. If you're really struggling with printing, if you don't have that facility, Ben Pollard, communication and marketing guy, will help with that. However, we'd like to keep that to a minimum, only if you really need it. Again, within the environment, make sure that that everybody is socially distanced where they should socially distance, and there's signage up in the toilets, changing rooms, and make sure that during session times, anybody in and about the venue, because you may be sharing a venue, that that those social distancing rules are kept. You can use toilets indoors come step 2. And I think step 1B, there is toilets allowed, but they discourage it where you can. But we know you have to be realistic that people will need the toilet. In terms of changing rooms, come step 2, you'll be allowed to use changing rooms. Again, keep it to a minimum and only if necessary. In terms of hygiene for the venue itself, make sure that your facilities are cleaned with the recommended products. Again, in our Safe Return to Judo document, there is links to the government website and information advising how you can do this and what materials or solutions you may use. It might be the manufacturer solutions for mats. In terms of running the taps, if you've not been in your venue for a while and you're responsible for it, ensure that you run the taps for at least a couple of minutes. I would recommend 5, but at least for a couple of minutes to make sure there's no Legionnaire's disease or anything or any other infections hanging about the stagnant water that may be sitting in the pipes. Ensure that your venue is well ventilated, and there's also a ventilation, as well as ventilation, there's also a rule for venues in terms of many people can be in that venue per 100 square feet. So there's 1 person per 100 square feet of a venue that are allowed in a venue. And that's not just the people, that may not, if you're sharing a venue, it might not just be your venue or your hall, it may be the whole venue. So you need to consider and work with your the provider of your facility to ensure that your numbers are right. So we may say 15-to-1 coach to player ratio. However, it may be that there's other people that are sharing the venue, using the kitchens, using the changing room, using the toilets, or a reception area. Although it's discouraged, there may be people in there that you also need to consider in your numbers. If it's your own venue and you're solely responsible, that's probably a bit easier than somebody that's sharing a venue. So speak to your leisure providers. In terms of bins, we recommend pedal bins with tied plastic bags inside them. 2 is recommended, and that just allows you before, during and after sessions to tie up and dispose of any rubbish that may have been accumulated during the sessions. So dispose of them carefully and make sure that they're used and used appropriately. Ensure you've got first aid kits and that everybody knows the procedures. Again, the advice is in the Safe Return to Judo document. In terms of the mats and spectators, in step 1B, there's obviously no spectators allowed. However, when we go into the dojo itself, make sure that your spectators and parents, when and if allowed, are at least sat 3 meters from the mat edge, and there's at least a 2 meter, there's at least enough space to make sure that they're able to keep 2 meters apart from other people, whether they're walking down the walkway or they're sitting on, if it's bleachers, make sure that it's appropriately signed and it's appropriately marked to maintain that social distancing. When we come to step 2 and outside for step 1B, there is under 18s contact. However, for over 18s, there's a 2 meter minimum social distancing rule in place in step 1B, and that's at the moment, and that will be the same when we come to step 2. Again, we've already said this, make sure that your mats are clean before, during and after the sessions as per government recommendations, and using the cleaning products that are recommended. And most of you will have read this before, but I would recommend that you look at it again and just refresh your memory if it's been a little while. In terms of the contact, there's contact judo. Any contact judo is allowed for under 18s, and you can also use non-judo activity. In terms of adults, any activities must allow for social distancing. So how you set your mat up will be important. If you're just doing things, small movement in a short space, it might be 2 by 2 meters minimum. However, if you're moving about the mat a little bit more, you may want to give them a 3 by 3 meter space, 4 by 4 meter space. It'll just depend on your mat area and the type of activity you're going to be doing. You can use shadow judo techniques, options, judo break falls, ukemi, and any non-contact fitness. So that's the kind of activities you may think about, and you certainly be allowed to participate in. Again, make sure that any equipment that's been used is either the player's own or it's cleaned before, during, and after usage. In terms of managing your session, you may want to use visual aids so that you're not coming into contact with, if you're a coach, with the players, because as soon as you have any kind of contact with the bubble that you're in, a 1 to 15 bubble you're in, if it's under 18s, then you wouldn't be then allowed to go on and work with another group or work in another venue with another group. So that bubble that you've created of 15, that's the bubble you're in. If you have any contact with them, then you can't work with another bubble. So you make sure that as a coach, where you can, that you don't, you maintain that distance as much as possible. If there's an emergency and somebody's injured, obviously you would be able to have some sort of contact. That just makes sense, that if emergency first aid is required, or somebody can't deal with that first aid on their own, then you would have to assist. Again, just reiterate, we do have our COVID-19 hub, and I would ask you to go onto our website, have a look around that. There's information for clubs, coaches, referees, technical officials. There's information there. All the A Safe Return to Judo information is contained in A Safe Return to Judo icon that's in there as well. So it's pretty easy to navigate and to find things. I have sent a lot of you already some information on how to link up to the various links that we've shared with you tonight, and we're pointing you to tonight. I shared that yesterday, this morning, albeit I was going to share it after this evening. It was I pressed the wrong button. I pressed the send button, but hey ho. So what we ask of you, just to go through things again. So read the documentation carefully, prepare the club and club venue, and consult with venue owners to make sure that everything's in place and safe. Ensure you follow the government and BJA guidelines. And that's just a list there of the things you might want to look at: the risk assessment, the venue, the mat, the equipment cleaning, signage, social distancing, hygiene rules, and general safety. So have a look through the guidelines and familiarise yourself with those again. Complete a BJA declaration form. We prefer that you do that online. However, if you've got an issue and you don't have access to, and I'm sure most of you do have access to online facilities, if you don't, you can fill a form in and send it to Sarah Walker, but we don't recommend that, but that option is there. Ensure that your clubs, that you contact your parents and participants to inform them of what to expect when they return to judo, so that they know and they're prepared and they're quite clear in what the expectation is before, during, and after coming to judo. All participants should complete and sign an indemnity form, whether that's the online proactive app or whether it's the digital form that we have, and that's on our website. It's called the Athlete Indemnity Form there. And of course, it's always important to follow BJA safeguarding guidelines. They're always in place. No matter what else we do, we have to follow the safeguarding guidelines to protect children and vulnerable adults. And it's always worth reiterating that, I think. So we're just going to do a couple of polls again. And this one is to ascertain how confident you are at your club that you can return to judo safely. So I'll launch the poll, give you a couple of seconds to read it, and then if you can start answering. My internet's a bit slow tonight, so I apologise for any delays in the things coming up. Oh, these are much quicker this time. I'll give you a few seconds more. There's a couple still to. I'm just going to end the poll now, and then I'll share the results with you. So based on the results, I can see that like 66 of you are completely confident or fairly confident that you can come back safely. That probably is in line with some of the other surveys we've done out there. Some of you are somewhat confident to come back, and that's 15% of you. If you're slightly confident or not confident, I would ask that you contact one of your regional officers and they will help you, or certainly myself, if you have any questions or any additional information you require. But I'm hoping after this evening you will be a bit better prepared to do that and your confidence will increase. But certainly if you're in the lower realms of confidence, I would encourage you to seek support from us. We're there to help you, and it's important for us that you get back and that you get back safely and that you feel supported in doing that. So I just have another question for you, and this can assure you this is the last question tonight. So where do you think British Judo can best support your return? And that that's in line with the confidence question that we just asked you a minute ago. So if you can have a quick look at the question itself, just launching the poll, and then you can answer more than one here. There's the options available, it's multiple choice. People are still voting at the moment. This takes a wee bit longer to think about. Give you a few more seconds. Just a couple of stragglers there, but I take it you're reading the questions and thinking. I'm just going to end the poll now and share the results with you. So as you can see by the results, a safe return to guidance is things that is the area that you most want some support with. And hopefully after tonight and when the guidance is published, well, it has been published, but it'll be when it's republished again. you'll be able to go through that, and it will help you ensure that everybody at your club knows what they're doing when they come back, and that your club's set up for them to return safely. Again, if you need any more help with that, please do contact us. And I can see that a lot of you out there are looking for support from the regional officers. That's their old title, the BG Development Officers are now regional officers. So they're there to support you. The providing of resources, we have the templates within the Safe Return to Judo guidelines, so you'll be able to download them as well from there. And it's nice to see that some people don't need any support at all. And hopefully the meeting the cost of creating a safe environment. The next section, Keith's going to talk about that and talk about the grants. So some of you will have had some support with that, and we may be able to in the future offer some further support with that. But certainly if you have any issues around costings, do contact us, and we'll do our best to try and seek some funding somewhere for you, perhaps through local funding opportunities. I'll just stop sharing that now, and I will hand over to Keith.
Thank you, Joyce. Okay, so we're back to the club grant project and what the objectives were. And we want to give you a few statistics of what we've together achieved by going down this route. But the objectives from the beginning was to support and encourage our members to return to judo. We wanted to take away some barriers and maybe some costs that could possibly be delaying you, support the coaches and their accessibility arrangements, providing resources that enable clubs to reopen, and of course support the coaches and members by enabling them to retain their coaching and other qualifications. But in real that's the high level objectives, but in real terms, the regional support officers have all been working with clubs to get their applications to be actually saying the story that you really need them to say. So many of you had a good story to tell in terms of the profile of your club, what you're doing, but also very specifically what you need to get back and how you can satisfy the needs of Sport England, who have particular needs for all sports, not just judo, all sports, to be tackling inequalities and what they see as an unfair baseline across the country. And that's what they really want us to address. But also with the funding, we've tackled things like additional cleaning costs for venues. Many venues that I spoke to who were in hired areas, the actual venue wanted to increase costs because they were taking on the cleaning and sanitizing of the entire premises. To enable sessions to be meaningful, you needed additional equipment in many cases. So the bands, maybe a new safety mat, maybe extra normal mats, all that type of training equipment. We needed to get qualifications renewed for coaches. The funding could certainly has helped there. And some people with venues, the venue just didn't open. So they had to incur additional costs at an accelerated rate going into temporary venues. This was another really big requirement, especially the sports centre locations. And of course, we've talked a bit tonight about sanitizing equipment and liquids and such like. Well, that was an additional cost as well. So all these things, the club grant project was there to address it, but at the same time, you know, the people who put the money in, you have to satisfy their needs as well, which was through the Inequalities Fund. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Joyce. So the next slide, it'll show us, as it does here, the column on the extreme left is obviously the area, and the next column, the total applications per area that's come in. So we're talking tonight about the southern area, which had 33, the Northern Home Counties, which is 24, and London 15. So you had 72 applications, which is about right for the region. So that's a third of the overall grant applications made of 221. Then we've got several columns where we've got them boxed off into various categories. So in development, that means that some applications are still having some work done. There may be some extra information being requested because Sport England may have requested some clarification on certain points that have been highlighted in the application. It's important we get that right. So that's the development column. There will be, of course, or there has been some that have been rejected, but quite a few of the rejections were duplicate applications. So maybe in a club, you know, they're very motivated to get the application in, and maybe more than one person has done a submission. So obviously the second one that come in becomes a rejected one. And there was a handful where there really wasn't a case for the Inequalities Fund. So we unfortunately, or not we, but Sport England unfortunately had to reject those if you didn't meet the inequalities funding. The Tackling Inequalities Fund, which is the next column, is all those applications that have been paid by the Sport England contribution. And you may recall what I said at the beginning, that Sport England put in £150,000 out of the 200,000 available, with the other 50,000 coming from the generosity of the areas plus the BJA Trust. So it made it up to 200,000 for around about just over 400 clubs. So the £500 per club was actually there if we had the applications in. So you've got the Tackling Inequalities Fund payments and the British Judo Fund payments. The last column, on hold, the main reason for any application being on hold at the moment would be British Judo just requiring the bank details of the club so as we can actually make the payment. You know, it's a bit strange, people asking you for all your bank details and whatever. So some of that could have been put on the back burner. But if it's from British Judo and it's to Justine Lynch, it's valid, and they just want to pay you the grant that you've been awarded. Thank you very much. Back to you, Joyce.
Thanks for that, Keith. Now we're nearly there now. I just, before we go any further, I'd like to ask Dermot, is there any questions?
I've had one or two.
Yeah.
I've had one or two questions. I've tried to answer. We just want a little bit of clarification on a couple of areas. The first one would be 100% up to date clarification documents going out to the membership and on the website, you know, as and when we know it from Sport England, because things are changing every hour almost. And it was just to reassure everybody that, you know, once we're in a position to put brand new documents up to date, we will send them out. Yeah,
we got the okay from the DCMS today, so Ben's in the process of putting them up. So you would definitely get that clarification. You should have most of it just now. The kind of foggy area at the moment is the 12th of April. Everything else is as it is. But I hope I was able to clarify tonight what the 12th of April will look like.
And just generally, people have said they've sent in the grant applications and they've emailed a number of times, and they're just not sure, where they are with those club grant applications.
Right. So if they just send us an email, and we'll
Yep.
we'll see what we can do.
One question is, if I'm a coach and I've taken a session for 45 minutes for an hour, say, am I then allowed to do another session and another session all on the same night with 3 different lots of 15?
You are, as long as you don't make any contact with the group, physical contact with the group.
That's
as soon
great,
as you make any sort of contact, then your class should be set up. If you're going to go from one to the other, it should be set up so that everything's clean between, including your own hands and a hand washing or a hand gelling, and ensure that there's no any physical contact. So use visual aids or get the players to demonstrate.
Got you. And just some of the coaches are asking for clarification regarding spectators inside the dojos.
Right. Spectators have to be discouraged, but where there's an individual that needs somebody with them, whether they've got disability or some other sort of issue that a parent or somebody needs to be there for them, it would need to be a special reason, then that would be okay. Discouraged unless it is necessary. However, we would recommend that if you have a welfare officer or someone else in the club, another adult in the club that's part of the committee or part of the setup, it would be essential you have another adult there, but they must be socially distanced.
One question was about the grading rebates. Would they be backdated to the clubs, say for the last 2 years or something like that?
Colin's working on that at the moment. So I don't have a definitive answer on the backdating, but he's working on the stuff going forward.
Yeah. The people have to take people's temperature when they're going into the club.
They don't have to. We recommend that if you can, you do. However, if you're athlete indemnity or you have the proactive app, that should ensure that anybody they're signing up to say that they don't have any of the symptoms before they come in.
Yeah, and the clubs are asking about bubbles. What?
Yep.
Just to sort of explain, what is a bubble as far as the clubs
a bubble
are
is a group that work together and that they've had contact. They're allowed that. That's their bubble. They've got contact between them. So the coach would have a bubble of 15. So they're sat outside the bubble if there's no contact. As soon as there was contact, they'd be part of that bubble. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then the following Monday, does it have to be the same 15?
Where possible, try to keep it the same 15.
Right, okay.
But it's not, it's where possible, yes, but the government and everybody else is realistic to know that you might have 1 or 2 people will drop out and you may want to replace them, but where possible, keep it to the same groups.
Yeah. And I had a lot of questions about schools. I think if we can just reiterate the difference between an activity that the school are responsible for and are organising and you are coming in to coach, separate from, say, an after-school club.
An after-school club would be BJA rules.
Yeah.
But the school activity, everything that comes under the school activity is allowed.
Right, yeah.
And of course, you can do indoor. From next week, you'll be able to do indoor school activity.
Yeah.
After school clubs and things like that, 1 to 15.
Yeah.
And if it's wraparound care, you're allowed to do it as well, if it's some sort of wraparound care.
And then there's just clarification. As of Monday, the 12th of April, on the current rules, adults training inside is 1-to-1.
Yes.
That's great.
And we call it non-contact, but the government in their phase 1 call it contact, but it's contact with equipment. So we have changed it to non-contact so that people know, are quite clear, because people were getting a bit confused with contact with equipment. So it is non-contact, but you can use equipment as long as there's no physical contact between two people.
Got you. Okay. I'm sure that there may or may not be some questions that I've missed, but I have given people my email address, because one or two of them were quite in-depth and somewhat complicated. So it's impossible to answer just in like a couple of sentences on the chat.
Okay, Doc. Thanks for that, Dermot. Thank you. And thanks for your questions. I think it's really important that you do ask questions, because it helps us, because we don't have all the answers. We have, we try our best to convey things the best that we're able to at the moment, but the environment and the information we're getting is changing, quite rapidly, quite quickly. And it's not easy always to keep up with it, but tonight, I feel we have as much information as we're going to have between now and next Monday, and then it will be at least the 10th of May before we know what's going to happen in the next phase on May the 17th, where we're hoping adults will be able to be indoors in bigger groups, or participate indoors in bigger groups. So I just move on. I've already sent you these links by email this morning. So the first one is just the general the return to grassroots sport and activity guidelines. I suggest you have a read at them. The second link here is for the contact combat sport specific guidelines, and that will come under the contact combat sport framework within that email link. The third link there is about out of school settings and the rules there. So I have a read at them as well. And then you have the cleaning in non-healthcare settings. So I suggest you make yourself as familiar as possible with them, as well as the British Judo guidelines. In terms of other external contacts or links that you may want to have a look at, we have Club Matters, UK Coaching, Mental Health, and British Judo's internal page for mental health. So within all these bodies and these links, there is information about coming back to your club from a mental health perspective, a duty to care perspective, and certainly from a safe practice perspective as well. There's some within Club Matters, they have workshops, they have lots of resources that will help you get back to judo. And if you go into the link, there'll be a grey box that says coronavirus guidelines on it. If you go into that, you'll see through that there's a multitude of resources available and information available for you to go through. In terms of UK Coaching Duty to Care, that's one of the products they have, and a lot of you I know have done these courses already. They're free courses, and they come in 5 pillars, and they're all around duty to care. So safeguarding, inclusion, diversity, mental health. There's 5 pillars within that, and free courses available for you to have a look at and to participate in. I think there's badges with them as well that are linked to SIMSPA. So everything on there, the mind, well-being, these are all good links to go in and see what's available for helping players coming back to your clubs. We know out there that there's some people will have suffered some sort of mental health issues during this time. It may be very mild and need no intervention. You might not even notice, but still be aware that it may be there. And there might be major things that I would hope not, but you never know. I think it's better to be prepared than sorry. So have a look at these links and certainly make sure that your club's well prepared for people coming back. In terms of internal contacts for British Judo, the first point of contact for the clubs in the southern area at the moment is Nick Shepherd, your regional officer, your regional support officer. So he would be your first port of call. However, if there's any specific questions that you want to ask another member of British Judo that are outside the guys that are on here tonight, or myself and Colin McIver, go on to email bja@britishjudo.org.uk. Again, all the information I've already sent you has all these links and these contact details. So it just leaves it for me to say thank you for everybody coming along tonight. We really appreciate your time. We hope we've made it worthwhile for you, and certainly do keep in contact with us, and any help that you need, give us a shout. We're here to help you. We all want to go back. If I go back to the quote at the beginning, we're one drop, but we're all one drop, but we're in the same ocean. We're all part of that same ocean, and we want to be working together to make things happen and get judo going again. I also like to thank Dermot and Keith for helping me tonight deliver this webinar to you. Their help's been really appreciated, and I'm sure you would like to thank them as well. So it just leaves me to say good night, and I hope to see you all around the judo world pretty soon. Do say hello. Do stay in touch with us. Don't be scared to approach any of us. We're more than willing to talk. All right. See you later. Goodbye. Thanks, everybody.